Dad was tripping, man.
Dog.
You think that makes sense?
Right.
Come on, dog.
If there was a way that something like that could be possible, as long as you live, like, don't you think you would have discovered it by now? Like, that's just very odd and very convenient timing.
Seen that wall, like, you think she in there?
Right. Dog, clearly it's a demon back there. I mean, I've never seen a wall look so demon guarded. Like, are you crazy? Shit glowing red and whatnot. So behind a
she
wall
in
like
there.
that.
You don't want to know.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you that. 'Cause she ain't what she used to be. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Cynicism. I'm Eric.
It's your boy Dante, man, and today we're going to be doing a review on Shang-Chi, the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Shang-Chi focuses on a young man by the name of Sean. He changed his name. He's living in San Francisco, California. He has a pretty humble lifestyle until we discover that he is not what he appears to be, and he has a very interesting background. His father being the head of his organization known as the Ten Rings. He's the actual original Mandarin. He had been raising his children, because Shang-Chi has a sister as well, to basically be assassins.
The driving force of the movie is pretty much revolving around Shang-Chi's mother. His dad needs to collect these necklaces that his mom had gave Shang-Chi and his sister before she died, and they unlocked the key to this village. He thinks that his dead wife is pretty much calling to him from beyond the grave, and her village has locked her behind this gate that they've been guarding for thousands upon thousands of years. In actuality, it's actually something a lot more sinister going on. So
first of all, we got Shang-Chi. I mean, he was raised from infancy to be this like master martial artist. He pretty cold with the hands, man.
Yes.
Trying to live this normal life, but his past is like pulling him into this bigger plot that he doesn't necessarily want to be a part of, but it's kind of like his destiny.
That training that he received?
Yeah, it was pretty brutal.
I mean,
that's
wow.
Some traumatizing shit.
But they were literally just beating them with sticks. I always find it interesting when these people that have these grand destinies, they live a below average lifestyle. It's like, I guess they're trying to fly below the radar, but if you want to be a regular person, you could get a suitable job. Like, you ain't necessarily got to be working minimum wage and shit like that. I always just think that's funny. They always working far below their potential. I would have liked to see more of, I guess, some flashbacks involving maybe him and Katie when he was young. Because, I mean, just looking at how he grew up, he was trained to be an assassin. Obviously, he was a hardened person. The person that we got to meet, it was a complete 180. He wasn't nowhere near. It was like no remnants of that person. He was a fun-loving.
Far removed.
So it just, I would have liked to see some of that, but I understand why they didn't. It's not crucial to the character. For that to be such a far cry from where he started, it's just like, damn, dude, he seemed pretty well adjusted. Right. All things considered.
Let's talk about the dad, the real Mandarin.
Right.
I guess we finally get to meet after all these years.
Yeah.
It's like Marvel was like, oh, I think we fucked up. The actual Mandarin in this movie, who's a powerful ruler of this Ten Rings organization, who's been alive for seemingly several thousand years now. It's like he's ruthless, but he has like humanity to him. He cares about his family, even though he has a shitty way of showing it sometimes. So he ended up falling in love with their mother, and he kind of softened a bit.
Before he met their mom, he had been alive for a long period of time. I'm like, bro, you ain't never fall in love in thousands and thousands of years. You ain't meet no woman.
Well, I mean, you can't be with no regular chick.
Yeah, that's true.
That kind of dude.
That's very true. I think the fact that she was able to beat him and treat him beyond that. And of course, she was very beautiful, but aside from that, like you said, just a formidable opponent, somebody that was kind of his equal, and I think that was really what drew him in. I think he's probably one of the more well-rounded villains that we've seen in a while. And Marvel's getting a bit better at that, actually.
They are.
With fleshing out some of these villains, it just seemed like since Thanos and around that Killmonger time, things have started to be a little bit more less one-sided. When it comes to these villains, we get some development on their side. This guy was layered. He wasn't completely evil, even though he was like a ruthless ruler. Yeah. But at the same time, there was a lot of humanity there. He clearly cared. Obviously, he was in mourning about his wife. Even though him going after that wall seemed insane, and you was like, dude, look at it. But at the same time, you're so grief-stricken, you kind of understood. It was like he was overcome by grief. He was willing to believe anything.
I mean, you live that long, you got to be a little bit crazy.
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
some point.
Absolutely. I'm surprised he wasn't as insane as he was, I'm gonna be honest, he ain't had no relationship with his daughter. It was just
they I was gonna mention that they didn't really interact much. It was more focused on his relationship with Shang and him.
They tried to give some development to that, which is that I guess he had distanced himself from her when their mom passed because he felt like she reminded him a lot of her.
They always say that.
Yeah, I know. So you gonna abandon me, nigga, because I kind of look like her? That's crazy. I need a parent too.
We can talk about it, Sister Witch.
Briefly.
Yeah, because we don't get a whole lot of her. You know, when we first introduced to her, she seemed like very reminiscent of the father, actually, with her. She seemed very cold-blooded, as if she doesn't really care about people. But once we get to know her and start peeling back some of those layers, we see that she has a heart too. And I feel like because of the neglect and everything, she's kind of shut the world out. She kind of just been on her own.
At a point, I thought they was going to kill her off. I'm so glad that they didn't, because I want to see her in the future. I think them teaming up is going to be something, and I look forward to seeing how they develop her further. She's a pretty cool character. I think we got enough about her that you would want to see more of her, but I definitely want to know more about her.
Katie is Shang-Chi's very close friend, and they've known each other for quite some time. I've been really appreciating Awkwafina's range as of late. She's known mostly for being a comedian, or at least a comedic relief in movies. She also has a way of bringing that heart. When it's time to be serious or when it's time to care, I feel like she really does a good job at conveying that.
And I like the fact that they gave her some fighting ability. She wasn't just there.
Yeah.
You know, even though she was a supporting character, they actually gave her some actual skill sets and things like that. She threw some hands a few times. She threw some arrows. And I think in the future, they're going to try to make them like a tandem type situation. They had great chemistry, by the way, too, man, together.
Yeah, they did.
Were they trying to do that?
They doing something.
Yeah. She leaned on them like this, and that's always something.
Yeah. It was heavily hinted at.
Okay, got it.
I'm glad it didn't happen here, though. I feel like a lot of these movies feel like it's like an obligation to an extent.
Yeah.
To like have like a love. I mean, you can tell they love each other, but it's not like they fell in love by the end of the movie.
I like that. I like that too.
Right. That shit gets old. As far as the fight choreography and like the martial art, for Marvel movie, this shit was top tier.
You read my mind.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of hand-to-hand combat in Marvel movies before, but not a whole lot of like martial arts.
The action overall in this movie was very well done, but the fight choreography, I was incredibly impressed by. It's very reminiscent of, you know, some of those old Chinese films that you see, even some of the more modern ones, but they definitely took a page out of that book, just the way that they filmed it. They made sure that the camera was steady. You could see it.
Thank you.
It was very well staged, you know, from in terms of the viewer perspective. It looked like they were very cognizant that people need to see this. And obviously with this being a fighter whose power are hand-to-hand combat, obviously. He's a supreme hand-to-hand combat fighter. You would have to make that a focal point in the movie, and it was so good to see that they did that, man. Not only that, but just some imaginative fights too, man. Aside from the great hand-to-hand choreography, how they incorporated some of the fights, like that whole scene where they were fighting kind of on them scaffoldings, and it reminded me of like just some old Jackie Chan movies, like Rumble in the Bronx. Yeah, especially the part where he had to save her when she was on the bamboo, and it's like he had to get to her. Very reminiscent of those type of movies. I thought that the ending of this movie was probably one of the more imaginatives and original that we've seen in a Marvel movie in a while. You haven't seen nothing quite end like this. The Protector actually came out, and then that thing actually came out, which I figured that it would.
That thing.
Yeah. That thing.
And that's all we're going to call that.
It was a lot going on in that, but it didn't feel congested at all. It felt very well thought out and very well planned out. The fight that he had with his dad with the rings, and then he started to kind of get control of the rings. Yeah. That shit was just great, man. It was a lot of really cool action scenes at the end of this movie that I really enjoyed.
Now that you mentioned the rings, I thought it was interesting that they kind of changed the form of the rings. Like traditionally, I think the rings have always like just been on the fingers. That was an interesting take. They made them like gauntlets or bracelets. Honestly, as far as the rings' powers or what all they were capable of, I don't know if we know, you know,
whatever
they can fuck people up, right? I mean, we know that. I assume we probably gonna get to see more of what the capabilities of the rings are, maybe later.
I think this movie was just to kind of introduce the concept of the rings, but we're gonna learn a lot more about them hopefully in the future. But I mean, I understood why he was beating ass back in the day, because it's like they don't have any comparative power to that. But in modern times, it's like, all right, nigga, okay, with all the rockets and drones we got today, I mean, maybe you might be all right. Like, how'd you feel about the CGI, buddy?
I felt how I typically feel about Marvel CGI. Sometimes it look good, and sometimes it's like, Sometimes when they just standing there, and then the background just don't be looking like it's really there. I always think back to like the original Iron Man movie. I felt like the CGI was done so seamlessly in that movie, and that movie came out in 2008. That's because they used a lot of practice. Like they used to actually use the armor and stuff in a lot of those scenes, and they would just touch it up with CGI. And I wish they would get back to that.
You can get away with a lot more when you're not close up on these creatures. Like when you far away, I mean, who gives a damn, for real? And then a lot of the times these things moving so quick, your eye gonna probably see some blemishes, but not really. But when you get up on them and you can see Shang-Chi on this shit, that's when you really start to see, your eyes start to identify a lot of them imperfections and things like that. So it would be kind of cool if they, I mean, just build at least like from the neck up and put that nigga on there, you know.
And I know it's time consuming. They pushing out these projects like at a rapid pace, especially now that they like behind, kind of, because a lot of stuff supposed to come out last year. It would be cool, like you said, to see just more use of practical effects every once in a while, man. I miss that. I miss that feeling.
In this movie, I was pretty satisfied with it overall. I mean, it's going to be glaring in some moments. That's pretty obvious when you involve those creatures. That was the moments to me where it stood out the most. I was impressed by the CGI that was used during some of these fight sequences. I was like, man, that actually looked, I mean, considering what we saw in Black Panther, this is like light years ahead of that. I thought for the amount of action and the amount of movement that they did, it looked pretty good.
We got to talk about these post-credit scenes. Mid-credit and post-credit scene. Let's talk about the mid-credit scene first.
Okay.
Who all was it? It was Wong,
Captain Marvel,
and Bruce Banner, which...
What the fuck? What a random lineup that was.
How he...
Okay, good. Because I was like, he never changed that in game, right? I thought I was tripping, but I said, man, they gonna need to touch. Then his arm broke.
He still got the sling.
We gonna need some information on that, but okay.
They were talking about the rings, right? Or the signal that the rings emitted when used, which sure they gonna follow up at some point.
They didn't give you a lot of information as to what the fuck going on. I mean, it's enough to pique your interest, but it's really nothing.
Basically, how I interpreted this scene is like, this was kind of his unofficial induction into like the Avengers world, basically. That's really the only purpose it kind of served to me. They were kind of like, okay, well, now we know you exist. You about to become a part of a bigger world.
Fair enough. It felt like that to me too, but with that beacon moment, it was like, all right, that scene, I was more focused on that. Then I'm like, of course he's gonna become an Avenger. That's a no-brainer. What the fuck is that though? Like, who did that call?
Which it brings a little bit more intrigue into the mystery of these rings too.
I mean, Captain Marvel just broke out.
She's like, oh yeah, I gotta go.
Yeah, right. Like, yo,
you got my number? Yeah. All right, let's talk about this post-credits.
All right, I'm intrigued to hear about this.
We see his sister, and she comes and basically takes over the 10 Rings organization. So she sits in her father's position now. The scene pans out, and it's like they got the 10 Rings behind her while she's sitting in the little chair. Pretty dope scene.
Oh, that's hard. I wonder if she's gonna be more of a anti-hero villain at this point, because the 10 Rings ain't no heroic organization from what I know of them. So
it's a lot of development going on in the MCU right now, man. Like,
it's a lot going on.
It's a whole lot of shit happening at the same time.
At once.
Aside from new characters being introduced, you got new universes and multiverses being introduced too. So ain't no telling what version of what character we gonna get in future projects.
I trust Marvel. I trust the people over there. So hopefully it don't become too much. But this shit about to get crazy. I know that for a damn certain.
It really is, man. Overall, I thought Shang-Chi was a pretty dope movie. Pretty amazing fight choreography. Some of the best I've seen in the Marvel films. I think I could say I was pleasantly surprised. Overall, I think I'm gonna give Shang-Chi a 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was a pretty solid movie. It wasn't amazing, but I definitely enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was pretty fun. They had really great characters in it. They had a really great villain. The lineage of the 10 Rings, the lineage of his family, all of that was very compelling and kind of drew you in. The action in this movie is top notch. It's very well done. Some of the best I've seen in an MCU movie. I'll probably give Shang-Chi about an 8. It's definitely worth checking out. I'm very interested to see how this character gonna play out in the future, especially given his fight style. That's gonna be interesting to see.
I definitely agree. I mean, he's a martial artist.
That's what I'm saying.
We don't have a lot of
like, you gonna try that with Galactus? Good luck, nigga.
Thanks for tuning into our review of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Hope y'all enjoyed that. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any suggested reviews that you'd like to see us do, don't forget to drop a comment below.
Absolutely. And if you guys have seen Shang-Chi, please let us know what you thought. How do you feel like this stacked up in recent Marvel movies? How do you feel like this stacks up on its own? What did you think of the fight choreography, the cast, all of that? We'd love to know that as well.
Just shout. Peace.
Peace.